thank you for joining me for another Sunday Afternoons with Reverend Lucretia. I am so glad you're here. So, the name of today's talk is What Did You Say? And the song is Your Words by Third Day. And as usual, if you would like to listen to the song before you hear the talk, just go ahead and click on the link below. I will provide that for you. So we're going to be talking about how the I am is the most important words that we use about who we are. But who are we to the other people in the world? What is it that we are saying to each other? We're going to talk about communicating, opening our hearts to others. Making connections is one of the ways that we show love. So we've heard it read over and over again that we are God's hands and feet on the ground. I'm going to suggest that we are also His mouth. If we are truly extensions of Him, then every word that comes out of our mouth is coming from God as well. We are here to be loving expressions of God. Our words we use are the reflection of who we are. We're going to talk about choices that we make every day and the message that we send out to others. How can we really be our best selves? If we tell ourselves, I am compassionate, loving, gentle, kind, smart, funny, strong, courageous, brave, healthy, what about telling other people that they are that too? Are our words expressing who we really are? I am sets the intention for who we want to be. Who do we want to be in relation to others? Your words are important. What you say to yourself, about yourself, and what you say to other people. We're going to talk a little bit about gossip and breaking people's confidence. We're going to talk about trust, using words in the best way to build and foster trust. We're going to talk about taking a risk to tell the truth, but in caring, authentic, generous ways. We're going to talk about having an emotional commitment to the words that we use. If they're really coming from our heart, and if they're really authentic, and if we really mean them, we need to have a commitment to them. It's all about the energy transfer. We're going to talk about the fact you want to walk away from people and they feel like they've been heard and they feel like you cared enough to pay attention to them. 1 Corinthians 13 says, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but I do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. So, we're going to talk about the book, Own Your Own Behaviors, Master Your Communication, Determine Your Success. This was written by Louise Evans, and she's the author of 5 Chairs, 5 Choices. She's a coach. She does broadcast journalism. She does radio interviewers. She's also a soprano. She sings very well, and so she's brought her voice to use in many different ways. She asks us, what behaviors and attitudes do we bring to our interactions with others? The choices that we make about how we interact will change the quality of our relationships. How do we become more conscious? The answer always is slow down. And so she's going to give us 5 choices in 5 chairs that will explain to us how we can be our best selves. This all came about. She was out with her soon-to-be daughter-in-law, and her daughter-in-law did something that triggered her and made her feel really uncomfortable. And she didn't want to react badly, so she slowed down and took a couple of deep breaths. And what she came to was this understanding that she had 5 choices. So here are the 5 chairs. The first is the red chair. This is the jackal. This is clever, opportunistic, always on the lookout to attack. This is the misbehaving chair, the most blaming, complaining, gossiping, judging chair. This is the I'm right game, where they're always pointing the finger and saying, I'm right and you're wrong. Mother Teresa says, the more we judge people, the less time we have to love them. The next chair is the yellow chair, and that's the hedgehog. That feels vulnerable. You curl up. You try to protect ourselves from the evil world. We mercilessly judge ourselves. I'm not good enough. There's a fear of disappointing and a fear of failing. This is also the victim chair. Krishnamurti said the highest form of intelligence is the ability to observe ourselves without judging. The next is the green chair, and this is the meerkat. So the meerkat is that little cat that sits up on its back legs and looks around. They've done studies. He can actually sit on his back legs for an hour, which is amazing. I mean, look all around. So this is vigilant, mindful, aware. What am I thinking? What am I telling myself? This is the chair where you are able to make choices and where you are curious. The next chair is the blue chair, and that's the dolphin chair. This is self-aware. We know who we are. We know where we're going. We're not afraid to speak our truth. We create boundaries. We are powerful. We don't give our power away. We are assertive but not aggressive, and we are intelligent and we communicate well. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So the next chair is the purple chair, and this is the giraffe, and this is the most difficult chair of all to sit in. So the giraffe has the biggest heart of all land animals and obviously the longest neck. It can see great distances. It has great vision. This is the chair of empathy and compassion and understanding, where we put our egos on the back burner, where we listen to people, and where we care for people. Abraham Lincoln said, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." So this is where we choose to embrace other realities and diversity. We become tolerant. What is important for him or her that is in front of me? You ask yourself that question. You stay connected whatever happens. Better communication comes from making choices, conscious choices about who we want to be. Watch when the negative parts of ourselves are being in control. Can we say, "I'm sorry"? And can we make it better and make amends if we need to? Next time somebody pushes your buttons, think, I have 5 chairs and 5 choices. So, Scripture talks quite a bit about the words that we use. In Luke 6:45 it says, "A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart, for the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." Psalm 15 says, "Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain? Those whose walk is blameless, who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from the heart." And again, we're talking about the fact that we want to be authentic, we want to be real, we want to be talking from our heart, and so that's going to have to be the truth that we're saying. Zechariah 8:16 says, "These are the things you are to do. Speak the truth to each other." We're going to be talking a little bit more about speaking the truth later, and about sometimes we have to have difficult conversations. Ephesians 4:15 says, "Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ." Proverbs 18:21 says, "Life and death are in the power of the tongue." Matthew 15:11 says, "Not that which entereth into the mouth defileth the man, but that which proceedeth out of the mouth, this defileth the man." And Eric Butterworth gave a really long talk. I listened to it. The written version was like 18 pages. It was really long, so I'm not going to include it in this. But he talks about the fact that we're really careful about what we put in our mouth. So the whole talk was about you are what you eat. So you put in your mouth healthy stuff and you eat really well and your body becomes strong and vibrant. But he says, but we don't pay attention to what comes out of our mouth. So the talk was very much focused on how we need to be really, really aware of the words that are coming out of our mouth. So Proverbs 18:4 says, "A person's words can be like life-giving water. Words of true wisdom are as refreshing as a bubbling brook." So if it's really true that our words matter that much and that our words have the power to lift people up, how do we go about having better conversations? So there's a talk that was given called 10 Ways to Have a Better Conversation. It's by Celeste Headlee. Celeste Headlee is a journalist. She is a radio personality. She does quite a bit of interviewing. And so she talks about the fact, do you ever avoid people that you don't want to talk to? That every conversation has the potential for being an argument. So Pew Research interviewed 10,000 adults in America and says that we are more polarized than we ever have been in history, that we have less ability to compromise, and that we are not listening to each other. And this study was done in 2016. You can just imagine what would happen if they did that study now. So conversation requires a balance between talking and listening, and they have research that shows somewhere along the line we've lost the ability to listen. We want conversation that people walk away feeling engaged and inspired, and that we made a real connection, and that the people feel like they were perfectly understood. I believe one of the most important gifts you can give a person is that they were heard. People heal by being heard. It takes effort and energy to actually pay attention to someone. So here are the 10 tricks that she gives us for having a better conversation. Number 1 is don't multitask. Be present, be in the moment. If you want to get out of the conversation, do that, but don't be half in and half out. She says some of the times we're just not able to concentrate. If we're not, have the integrity and have the honesty to be able to say to the person, you know what, I'm just not up for this conversation now. I just can't concentrate. You know, the cell phone thing is really bad, where you're looking at your cell phone and you're also having a conversation. That person doesn't feel like they're being heard at all. So she says, do not multitask. It's not a good thing to do. You should put your cell phone, out of your sight when you're actually having a one-on-one conversation. She says, don't pontificate. It's totally predictable, and that it is, it's hard because you tend to say the same thing over and over again when you're pontificating. You have a point of view that's yours, and so you say it a lot. She says that's not helpful. People can predict what you're going to say. She said you want to enter into conversation assuming that you have something to learn. M. Scott Peck says, true listening requires a setting aside of yourself. Bill Nye says, everyone you will ever know knows something that you don't know. So in other words, keep your mind open, be listening to other people, be aware, be attentive, be able to take in new information and understand that they've got something valuable to tell you. Number 3, use open-ended questions. Who, what, when, where. How did that feel? What was that like? Ask questions where the person is actually going to have to think about an answer, where it's not just a yes or no answer, and it's not an answer that they've said over and over and over again. They have to actually think about it. They will become more engaged if you do that. Number 4, go with the flow. Stories and ideas will come to you. Let them come and let them go. So she's talking about the fact that when other people tell stories, often we have a memory in our mind and we latch onto that memory and we want to communicate, oh, I had the same experience, or I know how you feel, I went there and I did this, and you have stories that relate to the story that the person is saying. But she says don't do that, because then you become so focused on relating your own story that you stop listening. And one of the biggest components to having a healthy, happy conversation is listening. So she says if you get triggered and you think of a story and all of a sudden you're trying to come up with all the details of that story, you're actually taking away from your ability to listen. Number 5, if you don't know something, say that you don't know it. So oftentimes people will ask you questions and you don't know, and you just sort of come up with stuff off the top of your mouth, but you don't really know. She says talk should never be cheap. If you don't know what you're talking about, just say, hey, that's not something I really know about. I can find out if you want me to, but I don't really know about that. So, number 6, don't equate your experience with theirs. It is never the same. So people often have a way of saying, oh, I know exactly how you feel. That's actually very demeaning. The reality is you don't know how they feel, and it sort of denigrates their experience by saying that you have the same experience. You don't. It's not the same. So don't do that anymore. More importantly, she says it's not about you. Don't take the opportunity to relate how amazing you are or how much you've suffered. So sometimes it's this one-upmanship thing where somebody tells them a story and you say, oh my God, I had it even worse than you do, or you're trying to one-up them with how much better you are than they are. And that's not going to lend to having a good conversation. She says conversations are not a promotional opportunity. I thought that was a great way of putting it. Number 7, try not to repeat yourself. It's condescending and it's boring, and we tend to do it a lot. And so she says she's got a lot of research that back up the fact that people say that they don't like being in conversations with people because they repeat themselves all the time. So try to be really, really mindful of that. Number 8, stay out of the weeds. So all of those details that you're struggling to come up with, the time and the place and when it happened and who you were with and what you were wearing, nobody cares about that. They care about you. They care about making a connection with you. They care about what you both have in common. They care about who you are. They don't care about all of those details. Let them go. Number 9, listen. Why don't we listen? So there have been books and books and books written about the fact that people don't listen well. And she said it all boils down, it's really very simple. We'd rather be talking. We'd rather be talking because then we're in control of the conversation, and then we don't have to listen to things that we don't like. We have more power if we're actually talking. The other thing is people talk at 225 words a minute. but we hear at 500 words a minute, and so your brain is constantly filling in those extra 275 words. She says, and that's one of the reasons why we're not listening well, because we're always filling in the blanks. She says, if your minds are filling in the blanks, you're not paying attention, and that's not a real conversation. So again, if you can't be in a real conversation with somebody, just say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't concentrate right now. You're really important to me. I really want to have this conversation, but I'm just not focusing right now. So she says to understand it takes real effort and energy to pay attention, and that you're showing the person that they matter to you when you put out that effort. Stephen Covey says, most of us don't listen with the intent to understand. We listen with the intent to reply. So again, we're coming up with an answer. We're not thinking about paying attention to their words. Number 10, be brief. That's harder for some of us than for others, but try to be brief. Be interested in other people. Keep your mouth shut as much as possible. Keep your mind open, she says, and be prepared to be amazed. So, keep your mouth shut. We're going to talk about gossip, because if we've worked really hard to have authentic, genuine, real conversations with people, we can blow it all totally by gossiping about people. We want to be loving and caring and genuine. We can throw all of the good trust that we have built up by gossiping and sharing what is not yours to share. So Brene Brown, she's one of my heroes. She talks about the anatomy of trust. So the marble jar. I've talked about the marble jar before. You trust people whose marble jar is full. So you get marbles put in your jar when you do a lot of tiny little things. She says it's actually a lot of insignificant things that pile up. So you trust people with difficult conversation whose marble jars have been filled up. So trust is built by the accumulation of small, insignificant moments. Feltman is another person who does research on trust, and he says distrust is what I have shared with you that is important to me is not safe with you. So Brene Brown came up with this whole system of building strong relationships called braving. And so we're going to go over some of that. B is for boundaries. So I have set a line in the sand of what's okay behavior and what's not okay, and I'm going to stick to those boundaries, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. R is reliability, that you're there for the person over and over and over and over again. So A is accountability, that if you make a mistake, you apologize it, you own it, you make amends if you need to, and you apologize. Number V. So V is the vault. This is the big, most important part in this discussion we're having about words. So what I share with you, you will hold in confidence. That's easy to say. Oh, I promise you I won't tell anyone. But it's often broken because you tell someone else's secrets that you don't have any business saying. So other people's secrets that I know that you are sharing mine. If you're telling other people's secrets, sharing something that is not yours to share just makes my trust for you completely diminished. So she says sometimes people share other people's secrets as a way of hot wiring the relationship. So they haven't built an authentic, strong relationship over time, but they feel like by sharing somebody's secrets, they can immediately build a connection. Sometimes our closeness is built on talking badly about other people. This is called the common enemy intimacy. It's built on hating the same people. You see this happen at work all the time, where you talk about, oh, she did this and she did this and she did this, and you're talking badly about all of the people that you mutually dislike. So that's not a good way to build up a trusting relationship. So I is for integrity. You're choosing courage over comfort. You're choosing hard over fun, fast, or easy. You're practicing your values and not just professing them. So integrity also is about having difficult conversations. So you stick to your words. They are committed to be important. You say what you really mean. You have an emotional commitment to them. You talk about things that are difficult, but you say them in ways that are kind to each other, and you have the integrity to risk hurting the relationship by saying something that's difficult, but you know that you can't just sweep everything under the rug. So integrity. Words are used with integrity. Sometimes we need to have the difficult conversations. N is non-judgment. So non-judgment is not just that you can fall apart and I won't judge you. It's also that I can fall apart and I will trust that you don't judge me. So that's some really hard stuff. You have to give them a chance to not judge you as well. G is generosity. Assume the most generous thing about the words, actions, and behaviors, giving the benefit of the doubt. So if somebody screws something up, you have the generous belief that they actually did it by accident. They weren't trying to do it. So going back to the integrity thing and the screwing thing up, if somebody forgets something that's really important to you, so it was your mother's birthday and it's a very hard day, and you've told them it's really going to be hard for me on Tuesday for me to get through that day, and they forget it. So two things: you have the generosity to assume that it really was a mistake, but you have the integrity to go to them and say, hey, I'm really disappointed. I told you that the Tuesday was going to be a really, really difficult day for me, and I needed for you to be there for me, to be supportive and nurturing, and you weren't. So you have the integrity to call them out on what really matters to you, but you give them the benefit of the doubt first, that it really was an accident. You can say to them, I know that you probably were busy or something came up, but you need to know that it was really important to me. This is about the difficult conversations. This is about having integrity. This is about not sweeping things under the rug. So use your words kindly, ask questions instead of lashing out. So do say to them, can you explain to me what happened? Because I had made it clear that it was really important to me. So understanding trust gives us the words to use to say, here's my struggle. Break it down using words, asking specifically for what we need instead of just ending the friendship. How many times do you just end a friendship because you just don't trust the person anymore? Instead of just walking away from the relationship, say, this is really bothering me and we really need to talk about it. So, in conclusion, what did you say? Words matter. We need to lift people up, encourage them, inspire them, show love to them, and be authentic. We need to think of breaking trust as an action. Sometimes that happens like when in a relationship, if somebody cheats on somebody, that's breaking trust, that's an action. But we need to understand that the words that we use can break trust equally as importantly. So here's an example. I had a friend, she's very, very political, and she was talking about a group of people on the opposite side of the argument that she has, and she used some very demeaning, nasty, unfriendly words. I'm not even going to repeat them. And she talked about this whole group of people using these very pejorative words. And it turned out I was actually part of the group of people that she was talking about. And when I said that to her, she said, oh, but I wasn't talking about you. But the reality is she used these words over and over and over again to talk about this group of people in an extremely unkind way, using words that are not okay to use. And so those words stuck with me forever. And no matter how many times she said, well, I wasn't talking about you, she still used those words to talk about that group, and it stayed with me forever. So sometimes betrayals can happen just by words, not actually by actions, but just by words. It's really important. How we talk about others is remembered and factors heavily on how they feel about us, whether we know it or not. So another example about words being that I made a very bad mistake that I had to pay for, and how important words are. I had a friend that we were very, very close, and he shared with me some very personal secrets that he had, and there were 3 of us that hung out together all the time. And so on one occasion I was talking to the third person and saying, oh, this is what happened, and I didn't realize that my friend had not told that person. And the next day I went in and my friend wouldn't speak to me anymore. And it took me months and months to figure it out, because my friend, I didn't know that he hadn't told him that already, and my friend wouldn't talk to me anymore. Well, the bottom line is those words were not words I could ever take back. No matter how many times I tried to apologize, no matter how many times I tried to make an amends, it was over between us. This is 20 years later. I've tried to make amends on several occasions, and he still won't take my call. So it's really important to understand that our words really do matter. Words we do say, words we don't say, words that are said out of integrity, they really do matter. So this can be really hard stuff. When I studied the 10 ways to have a better conversation, I was a little freaked out. I saw descriptions of a lot of the things that I do when my ego takes over and when I am impatient, that I have a ton to learn about listening better and keeping the focus on the person who is talking. And the Brene Brown material was really, really hard too. She sets very high standards for integrity and the need to be truthful and honest and have difficult conversations. The non-judgment part was scary for me too. I'm really good about letting people fall apart and not judging them. Not so good about falling apart myself and letting the possibility that people won't judge me. So that's an area that I need to work on. This is difficult stuff. So here's what I know. We are all braver, stronger, smarter, more resilient, have huger hearts, and more brilliant minds than we ever give ourselves credit for. We all have the potential to set really high standards for ourselves, and sometimes we won't meet them. But God is in us, with us, and all around us. Let us be magnificent expressions of God's love through our actions and our words. Remember, at all times, the power is in you. And so it is. Thank you so very much for letting me share this time with you. If you liked it, please feel free to ring the bell or hit the subscribe button. I will have a link for my website as well. And if you would like to support this ministry, you can go to littleawesomesideministry.com and hit the donate button. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I send you on your way with many blessings.